Edmond Obilo is a very brilliant man. He knows his onions. He knows that nobody can cheat him. But maybe because I'm illiterate, maybe primary school holder, I may not actually know the intricacies of the issue on grant, so I can be taken for granted. So if the exploiter wants to adopt a person for the distribution of the loaf, who do you think he will appoint? The non-entity, of course. Because he can manipulate me. He cannot manipulate Obilo, because Obilo is too clever to be manipulated.
So who is the non-entity in this case of the Nigerian Federation?
Of course, you know now. Of course, everybody knows. Can you compare the West with the North?
Welcome back to Local Journal. You see, unless this contraption called Nigeria is dissolved, there is no way we can make a headway as a nation. The reason why I'm saying this is that this country was not set up to succeed. It was set up to fail right from the beginning. The British knew what they were doing, and that was why they gave us independence without even a fight. Nigeria was built on a very wrong foundation, and if the foundation of a building is not good, there is nothing anyone can do about it. That building is destined to collapse regardless of how many years it takes. So you see, Nigeria has reached that peak and threshold of coexistence, and Nigeria can no longer work together as a united nation again. Going by the opinion and some of the comments we've been seeing online, it is very obvious and clear that many Nigerians want this country to be dissolved and everybody goes their way. And if I tell you that this country was built on a very wrong foundation, I know what I'm saying. So I'll play a video so that we can all watch and hear what they are saying in that video. But before I play the video, if today is your first time to visit our channel, please kindly like, share and subscribe to our channel.
The international community was not particularly interested in Nigeria as such. All that people were interested in were our resources. And he even went further to say, if we could get robots to exploit your resources for us to develop our economies, we wouldn't mind the whole lot of you being eliminated. But, he said, in the case of Nigeria, there is a difference. And the difference is that Nigerians are very hard-working and very intelligent. And they have got resources, most of which they know next to nothing about. If this country, Nigeria, with all these resources, both human and material, was to have an uninterrupted period of 20 years of peace and stability, it would be another Japan. Because these intelligent, hard-working Nigerians would come to know about their resources, they would use their intelligence and work hard and exploit those resources and develop their economy. A developing economy needs a market, he said. In our own case, you have no problem with the market. Your population is large enough to provide the market that you need. And even without that, the Nigerian market is the entire West African region and beyond. So you will have no problem with the market. Therefore, if you are given an uninterrupted period of 20 years of peace and stability, you would become another Japan, you would threaten our economy, you would be a thorn in our flesh. That was the view of this professor in 1967. And he therefore ended by saying that even after the Civil War, we will not allow you to rest. We will create one problem after another for you. Knowing this, therefore, I feel that in spite of our shortcomings, which I must admit we have, there is a kind of orchestrated campaign against Nigeria so that it may not emerge the economic giant that it is destined to be.
Africa, historically, sub-Saharan Africa, has been fundamental to the global prosperity of the advanced countries. Okay? And Africa had a role to play. It has a role as a raw material producer. We will not allow sub-Saharan Africa to escape that. Okay, we do everything to keep sub-Saharan Africa where it is, also impoverished. It's absolutely vital for the prosperity of everyone else. So let's get clear about that. Okay, and this means all the economic structures, all the global institutions, and the economics we teach everyone is all designed to keep Africa exactly where it is. And whether it is Europe or US, it's always the same. We need Africa to be impoverished because we need those raw materials and we need them dirt cheap. Okay, so that's the message. It doesn't mean to say that there's nothing Africans can do. Of course there is. Okay? But this is the opposition that they're fighting. This is what it's about. Because if Africa does do something different, I assure you living standards of all those in Europe and North America are going to fall. Okay? And that is a big price to pay. I assure you that the West is not going to allow that without a big fight. Okay, so this is what it's fundamentally about.
You made the point that the compelling forces emanated from two premises: the extant political disgust and the stinking military setup. With the Independence Constitution of 1957-58, the British went ahead to bequeath the bastardized legacy of the existing three regions to the nation in deaf defiance of all moral protestation. Explain.
You see, as I said, let me make an analogy that I just made in one of my write-ups. There is an executive who has a 30-story building. So there was a crack in his office, 30th floor. And he had to call the engineer that constructed the edifice. There is a crack, please come and mend it. And the engineer had to go down to the basement. So he did not know why the engineer went to the basement. He now was now disturbed. Engineer, where are you now? Come and fix this thing. The man said, sir, the crack you are seeing here is not to be mended here, but right from the foundation, because the cause was from the foundation. That's why I went to the basement. Lord Lugard said something in one of his books, which let me remember the title of the book: the dual mandate of the British in tropical Africa. Have you ever read the book?
No.
The dual mandate of British in tropical.
Okay, by Lord Lugard.
Lord Lugard.
Yes.
He confessed in the book that Europeans did not come to Africa to help them, but to fight for their own economic interest. It was a brazen confession. It was a brazen confession. So whatever they did, you should not blame him. You should not blame the British. They have confessed that they came here for their own economic purposes. Whatever is your problem is your problem. They don't care.
But so you blame them in this book.
Yes, I have to blame them. I have to blame them because they are insensitive. They have been insensitive. They have been unaltruistic. They have been wicked. They don't care what happens to the people. So, talking of the people bequeathing bastardized military, it was part of the ploy of I don't care what happens to you people. They knew that the composition of the military was not balanced, and they felt that, well, just let us leave them to their own problem, and everything else snowballed into the crisis of 1966.
And you also make the point in the book that the federation was not balanced.
Yes.
The North was overtly bigger.
Oh, yes.
Than the East and the West.
This is still, you see, the same thing we are talking about. Imbalance, insanity, on altruism. We are still talking the same thing.
You said in population and landmass.
Yes.
The northern region was deliberately designed.
Yes.
To be larger than the eastern and western regions put together.
Oh, yes.
Why was it designed that way?
It was because, okay, let me make an analysis. Okay, there is a loaf of bread on ground. There are 3 families to partake in the loaf. And you have 10 members of the family. I have 2. My friend has 3. And definitely you want to distribute on the basis of the largeness of the families. Who is going to have the larger part? I mean the largest part? You, of course. So this is one of the ploys. It's a way of benefiting the northerners. And there is a politics behind it.
What is the politics?
The politics, thank you. Let me see what analogy I can use again. Okay. Edmond Obilo is a very brilliant man. He knows his onions. He knows that nobody can cheat him. But maybe because I'm illiterate, maybe primary school holder, I may not actually know the intricacies of the issue on grant, so I can be taken for granted. So if the exploiter wants to adopt a person for the distribution of the loaf, who do you think he will appoint? The non-entity, of course. Because he can manipulate me. He cannot manipulate Obilo, because Obilo is too clever to be manipulated.
So who is the non-entity in this case of the Nigerian Federation?
Of course, you know now. Of course, everybody knows. Can you compare the West with the North? Were they educated? How many of them were educated at that time? When we were talking of the firsts in professions, talk of first doctor, first lawyer, first architect, first this, first that, they were always from the West and the East. How many firsts did you get from the North? So they first, they could better exploit the Northerners than these crazy people, crazy quote and unquote. These brilliant people, these highly intellectual people who cannot be manipulated. So they see it has been sensible to tilt towards the non-entity, so to say.
You know, this argument you make, Fulani Wajahi made it in his book, Nigeria, Africa's Failed Assets.
Well, I don't know, but this is my own conviction. This is the fact that I have.
But the North that you're talking about,
yes,
at the time had a sophisticated political system.
What was
the Fulani had conquered the Hausa states at the time.
Yes.
Their politics was already advanced. So I wonder why you don't recognize that.
I will not recognize that because they are colonialists themselves. They are colonialists themselves.
And to be a colonialist speaks of your political maturity.
It doesn't really matter the kind of maturity you are talking about. The maturity could be negative.
The British maturity was it not negative?
It was negative too.
But again, you agree their politics was advanced. That was why they were able to make incursion into new areas.
Will you compare the northern intellect with southwest intellect of South?
So what did the southwest and the southeast intellect bring?
Have you ever listened to the interview of Harold Smith?
I heard some part of it.
The British colonial secretary. He made a confession that his people were bluntly, brazenly in support of the Northerners because they were easy to be manipulated. Who will manipulate Awolowo? Who dare manipulated Awolowo?
But you said Zik was manipulated in this book.
Zik was manipulated
despite
because
his PhD.
It doesn't matter. You might have all the education in the world and you might not have good intent. Without being rude, I will tell you Zik was treacherous. He was treacherous and all evidences are on ground that he was treacherous. Despite his PhD, it doesn't really matter. But who would dare manipulate somebody like Awolowo? He was too upright, he was too intellectual, he was too educated, he had the best of minds for his people. So, if anybody thinks he could manipulate Awolowo, the person will have to think twice. But these people were there to be manipulated. Now, let me give you another instance. When the coup of 2066 happened,
1966.
Yes, the Northerners, under the leadership of Gowon, when they did the coup of July 29, they wanted to go. They were singing Araba. That is, let them go. Let the North go. But it was the British that came behind the door. Just don't go, it will not pay you. You better stay here. Because they wanted to continue manipulating, the Northerners. So that's why the Northerners now put their agenda in reverse. And they were now singing One Nigeria. So everything was clear that the British was hell-bent on manipulating the North in their own interest, for their own purposes, which is still reverberating on us till today.
We've all heard everything they said in that video. The summary of everything they said in that video is this. Africa is a very essential continent for these people. The raw materials this world consumes and everything this world needs are all in Africa. And because of this, if Africa is left to harness their resources in peace, other continents will eventually be at the mercy of Africa someday. And so because of this reason, the West intentionally decided to cause problem in Africa so as to ensure that there is no peace in Africa. And when there is no peace in Africa, the West will now use that avenue to loot our resources. And that is what is happening in Africa today. And in the context of Nigeria, Nigeria is a very great country in Africa. And Nigeria was even predicted and tipped to become the next Japan. But these people, they don't want this. And this is why the West will always continue to do everything they can do to always have control over Nigeria, because once Nigeria is liberated, Africa is liberated. And from the documentary in those clips you watch, there is no way Nigeria can be liberated. Why did I say Nigeria can never be liberated? The reason why Nigeria can never be liberated from these people is because of the Fulani Northerners. If it were left for the Southerners, Nigeria would have been liberated. But with these Fulani people whose ideology is very different, there is no way we can get liberation. And this was the reason why I earlier said that Nigeria can never move forward as a nation. It is better we divide and go our separate ways. The North are very conservative and they don't want anything like development in their own region. But the Southerners are liberal. So you see, if anything you are coming to discuss with a Fulani Northerner is not all about how to get power, just don't bother yourself because he will not give you any attention at all. We all know that some of the many problems we are facing today is as a result of the external forces that don't want Nigeria to grow. But who are the people and the region aiding and abetting these external forces? It's obviously the Fulani Northerners. All the challenges we face in this country and the very essence why Nigeria has found it very difficult to move ahead is because of these people. And one major fact everyone should know is this. Unless this country is divided or dissolved, the Fulanis will continue to have more power and wield more control and influence over everybody in this country. The British had an undisclosed agreement with these people before they gave us independence. Did you think when the British made Sir Abubakar Tafawa Balewa the Prime Minister, they don't know what they were doing? The British knew that giving power to a Southerner was going to demystify their age-long control over Nigeria. And this was why they gave power to the Fulani people who were just only power drunk and had no taste for development.